The Galactic Council stood as the ultimate authority in the galaxy, a powerful coalition of alien species that dictated the rules, boundaries, and laws for all known civilizations. Among its many responsibilities was the delicate task of deciding which races would be allowed full membership into the esteemed ranks. Humanity, still considered a young race by galactic standards, had been trying for years to gain that recognition. Yet, every effort was met with the same result: rejection. For the Council, humans were backward, militarily and technologically inferior, and far too impulsive to be trusted with the responsibilities of full membership. To the Council, the humans were little more than a minor species still crawling out of their cradle world. Despite humanity's rapid advancements over the years, the alien species that made up the Council could not see beyond their own arrogance. They believed that true power lay in size, raw strength, and technological prowess that took millennia to master. The human race, being relatively new on the galactic scene, was simply seen as unworthy. Each time humanity petitioned for membership, it was with the same hope and determination, only to be met with disdain. And yet, there was no choice but to keep trying. The future of their species depended on it. The latest attempt came in the form of a technology exhibition, a grand showcase of the most cutting-edge inventions from species across the galaxy. Humanity, ever persistent, was invited, but it was clear that this was seen as little more than a formality by the Council. They expected nothing remarkable, nothing that could shift the tide of perception in humanity's favor. It was a chance for them to reinforce the belief that humans were not ready to stand among the galaxy's elite. Humanity, however, had something to prove. They arrived at the exhibition with a singular creation, their latest technological marvel, a small, sleek jet designed for planetary defense. It was compact, unlike the massive warships that dominated the fleets of the Council's member races. The jet was a statement of human engineering, streamlined and agile, designed with precision in mind. While the Council's ships relied on sheer size and brute force, the humans had focused on speed, maneuverability, and advanced targeting systems. As the jet was unveiled, the reaction from the Council members was immediate and scornful. Laughter echoed throughout the exhibition hall. Representatives from the larger, more powerful species looked upon the human craft as a joke. They could not fathom how such a small and seemingly underpowered vehicle could serve any purpose in the vastness of space warfare. "Is this a toy?" one alien representative scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. "Do you expect us to believe that this thing could stand up to real combat?" Another, a reptilian creature with eyes that gleamed with arrogance, leaned in closer to examine the jet. "It's laughable. Our ships would crush it with a single barrage. What could this tiny thing possibly do?" The humans listened to the jeers and mocking comments with a mix of frustration and determination. It wasn't the first time they had been ridiculed, but this was different. This was their last chance to prove their worth to the Council. The lead engineer of the project, a man named Captain Lawson, stood by the jet, arms crossed, his face a mask of defiance. He knew what the Council was missing, the potential that lay beneath the surface. The technology packed into the small frame of the jet wasn't about raw power, it was about efficiency, precision, and adaptability, something the bloated alien warships lacked. But explaining that to the arrogant Council members seemed pointless. They had already made up their minds. For the human delegation, the mockery stung deeply. They had spent years working on this craft, pushing the limits of their technology to create something truly revolutionary, and yet here they were, once again being dismissed by those who refused to see beyond their own preconceptions. To many of the representatives, this was simply another example of humanity's naivety, thinking they could compete on the galactic stage with such inferior creations. The human diplomats tried to salvage the situation, but the damage had been done. The mood in the exhibition hall was one of barely concealed amusement, the kind that stung worse than outright rejection. For all their effort, for all the blood, sweat, and tears that had gone into the jet, humanity was once again being laughed out of the room. Captain Lawson, however, refused to let it end like this. He knew that the jet's true test would come, not in the exhibition hall, but in the field, where it would show its worth when it mattered most. It wasn't long before that test arrived. Mere hours after the exhibition, a planet under the Council's protection came under attack. A rogue alien faction, known for its ruthless raids and advanced weaponry, launched a full-scale assault on the peaceful world. The Council, caught off guard, scrambled its forces to respond, but their heavy, lumbering warships were ill-suited to the fast and coordinated attacks of the invaders. The planet's defenses began to crumble, and civilians were left to flee for their lives as the rogue faction tore through the skies. The panic spread quickly through the Council's ranks. Their ships were too slow, too large, and too cumbersome to deal with the swift and highly mobile attack vessels of the rogue faction. The Council's commanders issued frantic orders, trying to regroup and counter the onslaught, but it was clear that they were struggling. The once mighty warships that had inspired fear across the galaxy were now at a disadvantage, their sheer size making them easy targets for the fast, agile enemy fighters. The human delegation watched from the sidelines, feeling the weight of the situation. This was their opportunity to prove themselves, but they would have to act quickly. Captain Lawson stepped forward, offering the use of their jet to assist in the planet's defense. At first, the Council commanders scoffed at the suggestion. After all, what could one tiny human jet do that their massive warships couldn't? But as the situation grew more dire, desperation began to creep into the Council's ranks. They were losing the battle, and fast. Reluctantly, they agreed to let the humans deploy their jet, more out of a sense of obligation than any real belief that it would make a difference. They expected nothing from the human craft, nothing but failure and embarrassment. As the human-made jet lifted off, the alien commanders watched with cynical eyes. They saw it as little more than a final attempt by the humans to prove their worth, a futile gesture that would end in yet another humiliation. But Captain Lawson knew better. He knew that the jet was designed for moments like this, moments when speed, precision, and ingenuity were more valuable than brute strength. The rogue faction's ships were fast, but the human jet was faster. It cut through the battlefield like a knife, dodging enemy fire with ease and targeting critical systems on the enemy's ships with pinpoint accuracy. Where the Council's warships struggled to even land a hit, the human jet was taking out key targets one by one. The Council watched in stunned silence as the tide of battle began to shift, their disbelief slowly turning to awe. The situation on the ground was beyond desperate. The peaceful planet that had once thrived under the protection of the Galactic Council was now under siege, its cities ablaze, and its people in panic. The rogue faction, notorious for its brutality and advanced weaponry, had launched a devastating attack. Their ships tore through the atmosphere with terrifying precision, bombarding the planet's surface and targeting key infrastructure. Civilians scrambled for shelter, fleeing in terror as explosions ripped through the sky. The Council's defense forces, normally considered invincible, were overwhelmed, struggling to hold their positions against the onslaught. In the command center, chaos reigned. Council members shouted orders, trying to make sense of the invasion. Their warships, massive and heavily armed, were proving ineffective against the nimble enemy vessels that darted through the air, dodging fire and striking with ruthless efficiency. Every attempt to regain control of the battlefield was met with failure. The aliens had anticipated the Council's tactics, exploiting every weakness in their defenses. Their ships were too slow, their weaponry too broad, incapable of focusing on the smaller, faster targets. As each minute passed, the situation grew more dire, and the Council's confidence in their superiority began to erode. Amid this turmoil, the human delegation watched from the sidelines. Their offer to help, made earlier, had been ignored in favor of the Council's overwhelming arrogance. Even in this critical moment, the Council saw no value in what the humans could bring to the fight. The human jet, mocked and dismissed, had been deemed too small, too insignificant to make a difference. But now, with their forces faltering and the planet slipping from their grasp, desperation began to set in. Captain Lawson, standing with the human representatives, could feel the weight of the moment. This was their chance, a slim one, to show what humanity could do. He stepped forward again, his voice firm. They had to let the human jet enter the fight, or the planet would be lost. The Council's commanders, though reluctant, had little choice. They had already lost control of the situation, and as much as they hated to admit it, they needed help. With thinly veiled disdain, they gave permission, more to appease the humans than out of any real belief that their jet would make a difference. They still believed it would fail, perhaps even hoping it would, if only to reinforce their long-standing views about human inferiority. As the jet prepared for launch, there was a heavy silence. The alien commanders watched, expecting this to be little more than a formality before the inevitable collapse of the planet's defenses. Captain Lawson, though aware of their skepticism, remained calm. He knew what the jet was capable of, and more importantly, what the pilot could do. The human jet, while smaller than anything the Council could offer, was built for moments like this, moments when speed and precision could turn the tide of battle. With a roar, the jet lifted off, and in an instant, it was airborne. Piloted by one of Earth's finest and guided by an adaptive AI, the jet cut through the chaos of the battlefield like a predator on the hunt. While the Council's massive warships were bogged down in artillery exchanges, the human jet moved with lightning speed, darting between enemy vessels and avoiding incoming fire with ease. Its small size, once mocked, was now its greatest asset. Where the larger ships struggled to land a hit, the jet slipped through gaps in the enemy's formations, undetected until it was too late. The pilot's focus was sharp, his hands steady on the controls. The AI, designed to adapt in real time, analyzed the rogue faction's attack patterns, feeding the pilot critical information that allowed him to anticipate the enemy's next move. With precision targeting systems, the human jet began striking key weak points in the alien ships, focusing on engine components and weapons systems, disabling them with a single shot. It was a strategy that the Council had never considered, their forces too focused on brute force and overwhelming firepower. But here, in the heat of battle, the human jet's strategy of precision and speed was proving devastatingly effective. The alien invaders, once confident in their dominance, were now scrambling to respond to this new threat. They had underestimated the human craft, just as the Council had. One by one, their ships began to falter, their systems disabled by surgical strikes that crippled their ability to fight. The human jet, with its AI rapidly adapting to every maneuver, was always one step ahead, outmaneuvering the enemy at every turn. The battlefield was transforming, and with it, so was the Council's perception of the humans. They had expected failure, but what they were witnessing was nothing short of extraordinary. The tiny human jet, dismissed as a mere toy, was systematically dismantling the rogue fleet, turning the tide of battle in a way that none of their own warships had been able to. The Council's forces, previously on the verge of collapse, began to rally behind the human jet's efforts, taking advantage of the openings it created in the enemy's defenses. For the first time, the rogue faction found itself on the defensive. Their ships, once the terror of the battlefield, were being picked apart by a single craft they had never even considered a threat. Panic began to spread among their ranks as the human jet closed in on their command vessel. With a final, precise strike, the jet took out the enemy flagship's command center, leaving the rogue fleet leaderless and disorganized. The battle was won. The Council, watching from their command center, could hardly believe what they had seen. The human jet, the very one they had laughed at just hours before, had single-handedly turned the tide of battle and saved the planet from destruction. Silence fell over the room as the jet returned to base, its mission accomplished. The human pilot, calm and composed, landed the craft, unaware of the stunned expressions that greeted him. What had just unfolded was not simply a victory for the planet, but a revelation for the Galactic Council. They had vastly underestimated the humans and their technology. The jet's success was undeniable, and it forced the Council to confront a reality they had long refused to accept. Humanity was not to be taken lightly. Their approach to technology, one that emphasized adaptability, precision, and strategy, had proven superior in a way that the Council's massive warships could not. In the aftermath of the battle, there was no more mockery, no more disdain. The Council, once so certain of humanity's inferiority, now stood in silence, realizing just how wrong they had been. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity and strategic brilliance, and now, with the planet saved, They could no longer deny that the humans had earned their place among the galaxy's elite. The human jet, once mocked, had proven its worth beyond any doubt. The aftermath of the battle left the Galactic Council reeling. What had started as a routine defense of a planet had turned into a shocking display of human ingenuity, and now the Council was faced with questions they could not easily answer. An emergency debriefing was called, with representatives from the major species gathering to dissect what had just occurred. There was confusion, even disbelief, as they struggled to comprehend how a single, seemingly primitive human-made jet had outmaneuvered and outperformed their own warships, designed and built with millennia of technological advancement. The questions came quickly, with council members demanding explanations. How could such a small craft, one they had openly mocked just hours earlier, turn the tide of battle against a superior force? The human delegation stood quietly as the murmurs spread through the room. Captain Lawson, the lead engineer behind the jet, stepped forward to address the council, his voice calm but confident. What they had witnessed, he explained, was not the result of brute force or overwhelming firepower. The true strength of the jet lay in its design, its adaptability, and its use of cutting-edge technology that prioritized agility and precision over sheer size. The jet's primary innovation, he continued, was its adaptive AI system, an artificial intelligence that learned in real time. Unlike the static, pre-programmed systems of the Council's warships, the AI in the human jet constantly analyzed its surroundings, adjusting tactics and strategies based on enemy movements and attack patterns. In effect, it was always one step ahead of its adversaries, able to anticipate attacks and respond with pinpoint accuracy. This allowed the jet to navigate the battlefield with unmatched precision, striking critical targets with surgical efficiency while avoiding incoming fire. But that wasn't the only key to the jet's success. Captain Lawson went on to explain the jet's propulsion system, a revolutionary design that utilized a hybrid fusion engine. This engine allowed the jet to accelerate and maneuver at speeds that even the most advanced alien warships couldn't match. While the Council had focused on building larger and more powerful vessels, humanity had taken a different path, creating a craft that relied on speed, intelligence, and flexibility to overcome its opponents. The jet's ability to outmaneuver enemy ships wasn't just about avoiding damage. It was about positioning itself in the perfect spot to deliver the most effective strikes, disabling key systems on enemy ships with minimal effort. As the human engineer explained these innovations, the realization began to settle in among the council members. They had been blinded by their own arrogance, assuming that size and firepower were the only measures of strength. They had underestimated humanity's ability to think outside the box, to approach problems from a different angle. The human jet had not simply outgunned the enemy, it had outthought them. And that, more than anything, was what had given it the edge. But the surprises didn't end there. As Captain Lawson continued his explanation, he revealed the true purpose of the human-made jet. While it had proven itself as a formidable combat vehicle, it had not been designed solely for war. In fact, the jet was a multi-purpose craft, equipped for both defense and humanitarian missions. Hidden within its compact frame were advanced medical facilities, capable of providing emergency care in disaster zones. The jet could be reconfigured on the fly to carry supplies, evacuate civilians, or deliver aid to planets in need. It was not just a weapon, it was a tool for survival, designed to protect and serve in a variety of roles. This revelation left the Council even more astounded. Their warships, as advanced as they were, had been designed with a singular focus: brute force. They were machines of war, built to crush their enemies with overwhelming firepower. But the human jet, with its versatility and adaptability, represented a completely different approach. It wasn't just about destruction, it was about saving lives, about responding to threats and challenges in ways that the Council's ships couldn't. This multifunctional capability made the jet far more valuable than any of the specialized warships the Council had in its fleet. The Council members, once so sure of their superiority, were now forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about humanity. They had laughed at the human craft, dismissing it as a primitive attempt to compete with their own technology. But now, they could no longer deny the truth. The humans had created something extraordinary, something that outshone the very technology they had prided themselves on for so long. It was at this moment that the discussion took a more serious turn. For years, humanity had petitioned for membership in the Galactic Council, only to be repeatedly rejected. The Council had viewed them as too young, too inexperienced, and too reckless to be trusted with the responsibilities of full membership. But now, in the wake of this battle, those assumptions were being questioned. The humans had not only saved the planet, they had proven their ability to innovate, to strategize, and to create solutions that the Council's most advanced species had never considered. The decision was not immediate, but the shift in attitude was undeniable. The human delegation was invited to a private meeting with the Council's leaders, a rare honor that had never before been extended to them. In that meeting, the humans were formally offered a seat on the Galactic Council. It was not given out of pity or desperation. It was a recognition of their achievements, of the role they had played in defending the galaxy from a dangerous enemy. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through brute force, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and a willingness to think differently. For the humans, this was not just a victory on the battlefield, it was a diplomatic triumph, a turning point in their relationship with the wider galaxy. The Galactic Council, once so dismissive of their efforts, now saw them as equals. Humanity's role in the galactic community would forever be changed, and they would no longer be seen as a minor player. They had proven their worth in the most definitive way possible. As the dust settled and the planet began to recover from the invasion, the implications of humanity's victory became clear. The jet, once mocked, was now a symbol of something far greater. It represented the rise of humanity, a species that had been underestimated and ridiculed, but had risen to the challenge and surpassed all expectations. The Council, in their arrogance, had failed to see the potential that lay in human creativity and adaptability, but now they could no longer ignore it. In the end, humanity was accepted into the Galactic Council, not as conquerors or as equals in terms of raw power, but as something far more valuable. They were recognized for their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to solve problems in ways that the advanced alien species had never anticipated. The human-made jet, once a source of mockery, had become a symbol of their rise in the galaxy, a reminder that even the smallest and most underestimated forces could make the biggest impact.